All right, hi everyone. We're here on a part two of our review for equations and inequalities in preparation for our unit test. So here we go. So in part one, we end with question number 6. So we start with question 7 today. So during the road trip, Sterling keeps track of the time he spends on driving, which represents for letter T, and the distance he drives, which represents the letter D, which best describes the variable T and D. Remember your dependent variable and independent variable. So which one of these depend on each other? So is it the time depends on the distance or the distance depends on the time? In reality, if you look over to what's happening, so your time travel is there all the time, and your distance will depend on how much time you travel. All right, so assuming that we drive constantly like 60 miles per hour or 25 miles per hour, it depends where you are. So look over here for letter A. The variable D is dependent. The distance is dependent variable because it determines the amount of time spent on driving. That's actually true, but not totally. The variable D is dependent on the variable is a dependent variable because it depends on the amount of time spent on driving. That is the missing part for answer letter A. So the variable D is the independent of the variable T. The variable T is dependent to the variable D. I don't think that's correct. That the variable D will, or the distance will depend is the dependent to the time. So the distance will depend on the time you travel. All right, so both variables are dependent. This situation will never be both variable is dependent to each other. So the best answer we could have here is B. The variable D is dependent because it depends on the amount of time you spend. So your distance traveled will depend on the amount of time you were driving. All right, so the answer here is D. Is B. All right, let's move on. Question number 8. So okay, a store is collecting bottles for 2 different organizations. Half of the bottles of the water collected are given to the local school band. Complete the table to show number of bottles of water, which is letter B, that are given to the band when C bottles are collected in total. Remember, it says half of the bottles were collected were given to the local, half of it. So if you look over here, it's all empty, but if you look over here, there is a relationship, like the collection is 26 and half is given, and that is an easy fix, correct? So these are half and these are wholes. So with that said, it's easy for us to say that since 5 is half, the collection is 10. So if you collect 14, and we know that half of that will be the given bottle, so they're gonna be 7. And here that's 18. So again, this is 18. So half of that is 9. This is 12. So since that's half, that becomes 22. So just look at the table you have. Sometimes you will not see a pattern because look, it's 5 and 7, so plus 2 plus 2 plus 2, you could see. But there are a lot of times that the pattern will not show. So all you have to do is find the relationship between the first column to the second one, or first row to the second row, or the C and the B, or the B and the C. But it tells you right away in the problem. Okay? All right, question number 9. Which equation can be used to describe the pattern in the table? So these are the equations given. There are different ways you could do this. You could substitute the value, like for example, change the value of x and then see if it becomes the y. So if it's 2 times 10 is 20, and that becomes y. It looks like A is correct. Let's look over here. That's 2 times x is 11. That becomes 22. It looks like also correct. And 12 times 2 is 24. 13 times 2 is 26. 14 times 2 is 28. We have a winner, which is A. But what if it did not work that way? What is another way of finding the relationship between the x and the y? Look at B. We're just substituting it. So if this is 20, let's say y is 20, and then it will be equal to 10 divided by 2. So that way is incorrect. So B will not be a possible solution. Let's look at C. Okay, if the equation should work in each one of them. So if one of them will not work, so definitely that will not be an answer. So let's look at letter C. So 20, it says, minus 10 is 10. That's correct. That worked for the first one. Let's look at number the 22. So it says 22 minus 11. That gives us 11. So this did not work. So C is not working. Let's look at letter D. D becomes says 20 is half of x, which is 10. Definitely that's not right, because this becomes 20 is not equivalent to 5. So for the first one right away, it's not working. So it's only letter A works for every single one of them. So A is our answer for question number 9. Alright, there's another strategy that we learned a while ago, that find a pattern of x to figure out what is y. So if you go from, since they are in order, like look, 22 plus 2 plus 2 is fine, right? So what's the pattern from here to here, from here to here? So it's adding 1, correct? So that's plus 1. And that's plus 1. But here you got 2. And so on, we got 2. So the question is, what are you gonna do with the x to get the y? So the pattern on the y will tell you what you do to the x. So that's 2 times the x will give you the y. So that becomes 2x equals y. So there you go. You're gonna multiply that 2. Just make sure that your pattern is exactly the same at all times. Right? So what do you do with the y to get an x? Or the other way around, what do you do with the x to get the y? So, but you had to look at the pattern. The pattern will tell you what you're gonna do to multiply. And then if there's a remainder, so you have to add and add. But in this case, that is 2x, which is 10, and gives you that. 2 times 11, and gives you that. Okay? Let's go to our second to last question. Alright, so here we go. The graph shows of Jhya's saving account. Use T for time. Alright? So use T for the time, which is our x. And then B for the balance. So we're gonna have to be here. Identify the independent variable and the dependent variable, and use them to write the equation to represent the situation. So my suggestion for this one is create a table, right? So table will always will help us to make the what do you call that, the equation, if it's hard for you to look at the graph. So let's create a table for a while, okay? So here we go. I pre-created the table. Actually, I just wrote them. So let's look at the graph. So at the time which is 0, okay, the balance is already at 3. right? Maybe you got already a deposit of $3. And then when it is 2, I could get 1 and get it before. I could do that. We could do 1, and then at 1 it's at 4, right here. You see that at week 1 she already got $4. So at week 2 she got 5. At week 3, let's look, she got 6. I don't really have to continue all the way down to make the table for all of them. We could already see what is going on, correct? Remember the pattern that we had the previous one? So let's work on that. Since we know that our time is the independent variable and B, or the balance, are a dependent variable, so what will you do with the time to get the B to the balance? So you're gonna write an equation for that, right? So what we're gonna do with time to get B, if you look over here, so I could just add 3, 1 plus 3, 2 plus 3, 3 plus 3, right? What do you do with T to get B? So we just add 3. So the T plus 3. And you're gonna have to check if it works for all of them. So 0 plus 3, 1 plus 3, 2 plus 3, 3 plus 3. Alright? So that's how it works. You have to look for the pattern. And always have to say what will you do with the independent variable to get the dependent variable. Okay? Alright, one last question. So what is the value of x for this equation? So this is a subtraction equation. We know that subtraction equation can be solved using inverse operation. So we're gonna do add 3/4 to both sides. So that's gonna be plus 3/4. Alright, and then plus 3/4 on this side too. I just have to think that the denominator should be the same to get the answer for that. So we could cancel this out because that is equivalent to 0. So now we have x equals to 5 and 1/6. I'll make it this way so that we'll see what we're gonna do. Plus 3/4. Okay, so since that is 6 and 4, we're gonna just add them. We need to figure out the common denominator. So we're gonna change 1/6 and 3/4 to make their denominators same. And if you said 12 is their common denominator, that is correct. So let's change that to 12. Right, so I rewrite it in a way that we're gonna have the same denominator. So, but if we make this 6 as 12, so you multiply it by 2. So therefore, I'm gonna multiply this by 2. So that's gonna be 2. To make this 12, I multiply this to 3, right? So therefore, I also gonna have to multiply this to 3. So that becomes 9. So now we have our answer of 5 and 11 over 12. Can we still simplify that more? No more. So that's gonna be our answer for this problem. If you want to go back and check 5 of and 11 over 12 minus 3/4 and see if you got 5 and 1/6. All right, I want you to study and make sure you're ready for the test. We're gonna have our test on Wednesday, so you have time to study. Good luck, everyone. Until next time.